I walked through the door expecting the usual hum of our home, but something was off immediately. The familiar scent of dinner in the air was replaced by an uneasy silence. As I made my way to the living room, I caught sight of Samantha in the soft glow of the lamp, laughing, yes, laughing, with a man I'd never seen before. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to comprehend what was unfolding before my eyes. "Samantha, what's going on here?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely audible over the rapid beating of my heart. She turned to me with a serene smile, as if nothing were amiss. "Andrew, this is just a harmless date," she said calmly. "It doesn't change anything between us." Her nonchalance cut deeper than any harsh words ever could. I felt a surge of revulsion and disbelief. How could something so blatantly disruptive be dismissed so easily? Every instinct in me screamed that something was terribly wrong, that trust had been shattered in a single, unthinking moment. I couldn't stand to be there any longer. Without another word, I stormed out of the house, my mind racing with a mixture of betrayal, anger, and sorrow. I drove aimlessly at first, the city lights blurring past my window as my thoughts swirled uncontrollably. After a while, I found myself heading towards the only safe haven I could think of, my daughter Lauren's place, 18 miles away from the turmoil. The drive was long and quiet, filled with memories of happier times and the heavy weight of what I had just witnessed. I pulled up to Lauren's house with a sinking feeling in my stomach, unsure of how she would react to the news that had unraveled my world in such a short time. Inside, Lauren's eyes widened with shock as I recounted what I had seen. "Mom, really?" she stammered, disbelief mixing with concern. The conversation barely had time to settle before her sister, Vivian, joined us, equally stunned and questioning how everything could have changed so swiftly. In that moment, standing in the small, familiar kitchen, I realized that my life was suddenly caught in a web of lies and deception. The certainty of our shared past had been replaced by uncertainty and betrayal. As the weight of the revelation hung over us, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. Later that evening, the tension in our home reached an unbearable level. Samantha sat at the dining table with Lauren and Vivian, her tone smooth and rehearsed as she tried to justify what she had done. I lingered in the background, feeling every word like a fresh cut. She explained that a simple date didn't change the foundation of our marriage, that sometimes people drift and need something extra. But her words fell flat in the charged silence of the room. Lauren's eyes were hard with disappointment. Without raising her voice, she made it clear that she could not accept any rationalization for what she'd witnessed. "Mom, this isn't just a mistake you can brush off," Lauren said softly, yet firmly, her gaze fixed on Samantha in a way that left no room for further discussion. Vivian, on the other hand, clutched at a thread of hope. "Maybe it's just a phase," she whispered, as if speaking it aloud might somehow undo the betrayal. But even her hopeful tone couldn't mask the underlying pain and confusion that filled the air. I sat in the quiet corner of that room, every word intensifying the bitter realization that nothing was the same. The trust that had once anchored our family was crumbling before my eyes, and each of Samantha's justifications only deepened the chasm between us. As I listened, I couldn't shake the thought that her attempt at normalcy was nothing but a poorly wrapped excuse for a deeper deception. That night, sleep eluded me as I wrestled with a mounting decision. The house, once a sanctuary filled with shared memories, now echoed with betrayal. Every creak in the floor and every rustle of the wind outside seemed to whisper that it was time to leave. I knew that I couldn't remain married to someone who dismissed my pain so casually. And even more, I couldn't subject our daughters to a life built on such fragile foundations. By morning, the decision was made. I packed a few essential items with a heavy heart and slipped out of our home before the others stirred. There was no dramatic farewell, just the quiet acceptance that this was a necessary step. I drove away with a sense of both loss and resolve, leaving behind a chapter of my life that had suddenly become irreparably damaged. I headed toward the lake, a place that had once been a retreat for us, a quiet corner of the world where I had often found solace. There was an old house there, one that Samantha had inherited and turned into a personal escape over the years. It was a place filled with memories of better times, yet now it offered me the isolation I craved to process the chaos that had overtaken my life. Arriving at the lake house, I was struck by the eerie tranquility that contrasted so starkly with the turmoil in my heart. The water's surface shimmered under a pale sky, and the familiar creaks of the old wooden porch seemed to murmur secrets of the past. I wondered if the very walls of this house had absorbed too many stories of love and loss, and if maybe, in their silence, they might offer me some understanding. As I settled in, the solitude of the lake became both a refuge and a mirror for my thoughts. The isolation allowed me to sift through the events of the past few days, each memory as clear and painful as a fresh wound. Yet, beneath the surface of sorrow, there was a strange current of determination. I knew that the path ahead wouldn't be easy, but the clarity of the lake's reflection reminded me that sometimes you have to face your own truth before you can move forward. In those quiet hours by the water, I began to wonder if this separation was merely the end of a chapter or the beginning of something entirely unexpected. The calm of the lake held a secret promise, that even in the wake of betrayal, there could be a chance to rebuild a life that was truly my own. And though the future was uncertain, I felt an unspoken thrill at the prospect of rediscovering who I might become once I was free from the shadows of our broken past. There was, however, a subtle twist to this newfound isolation. While the lake house offered the perfect hideaway, it also carried its own mysteries. In the quiet nights, I started to notice little anomalies, a misplaced book here, an unexplainable sound there, that hinted at hidden layers within the house itself. At first, I dismissed these occurrences as tricks of an overactive imagination, fueled by the emotional whirlwind of recent events. But as days passed, it became increasingly clear that the lake house had secrets of its own, secrets that might intertwine with my journey of self-discovery in ways I had never anticipated. The more I pondered the situation, the more I realized that the choices we make in moments of despair often lead us down paths we never intended to tread. My escape to the lake house wasn't just about leaving behind a failed marriage. It was about stepping into a future filled with unforeseen possibilities. Even as I mourned the loss of trust and love, I couldn't help but feel that this solitude might be the catalyst for a profound personal transformation. In the silence of that old house, with the soft lapping of the lake against the shore and the whispers of past lives echoing through the halls, I began to write a new chapter for myself. One that was raw, uncertain, and laced with the potential for unexpected twists. Each day, as I stared out at the vast expanse of water, I felt both the weight of what I'd lost and the promise of what might lie ahead. A future that, while unpredictable, was finally mine to shape. And so, as the days melted into one another, I embraced this solitude with cautious optimism. I wasn't sure what secrets the lake house would eventually reveal, nor did I fully understand the extent of the new life I was stepping into. All I knew was that every sunrise over the shimmering water was a reminder that even after the darkest nights, there was a chance for renewal, a chance to uncover the hidden layers of my existence, one unexpected twist at a time. In the weeks that followed my move to the lake house, Samantha's calls became more insistent, each one an attempt to bridge a chasm that had long since formed between us. She simply couldn't grasp why I couldn't accept what she was proposing. An open marriage, a new stage in our lives where we could each find our own happiness. Every time we spoke, her voice carried a blend of confusion and pleading, as if my decision to walk away was not only painful, but utterly irrational. I listened, my heart growing heavier with each conversation. Samantha insisted that our love was still intact, that this change could usher in a period of renewal rather than destruction. But to me, her words rang hollow. The betrayal was too fresh, too raw. I had tasted the bitterness of infidelity and deceit, and nothing she said could restore the trust that had been so carelessly shattered. I knew deep down that staying in a marriage built on such unstable ground would only lead to further heartache. So, with a resolute determination that surprised even me, I filed for divorce. It was not a decision made lightly. It was the culmination of sleepless nights and endless doubts, the final act of a long, painful process. Samantha was unyielding in her refusal to accept this outcome. Instead, she sought to slow the inevitable, dragging our case through the courts with demands for family therapy and other measures she hoped might salvage what was left of our union. But I had long since made up my mind, therapy or not, I could not re-enter a life where betrayal was part of the foundation. The legal battle stretched on for 5 grueling months. Courtrooms became the battlegrounds where our conflicting visions of the future clashed. Each session, each tense negotiation, felt like a minor victory for Samantha and a devastating reminder of all that had been lost for me. I had envisioned a clean break, a swift, decisive end that would allow both of us to rebuild our lives independently. Instead, I found myself entangled in a process that drained not only my finances, but also my spirit. Throughout it all, I clung to the resolve that had driven me to the lake house. The solitude there, the quiet nights by the water, reminded me daily that this separation, though painful, was also a path toward personal rebirth. I could no longer allow myself to be tethered to a past where loyalty had been betrayed. The legal process, with all its bitterness and complexity, was simply a necessary step toward reclaiming my future. When the day finally came that the divorce was finalized, I felt an overwhelming mix of relief and sorrow. The courtroom doors closed behind us, symbolizing not just the end of a marriage, but the closing of a tumultuous chapter of my life. In that finality, there was both liberation and a lingering sense of what might have been a life where love was perhaps a little less complicated, a little less hurtful. Walking out of that courthouse, I carried the weight of all that had happened with me. Yet I also sensed the first tentative stirrings of hope. The rejection of an open marriage wasn't just a refusal to accept a new way of life. It was a clear, uncompromising boundary drawn in the wake of betrayal. It signified that for me, love was not a concept to be diluted or redefined by convenience. It was a sacred trust that, once broken, could not simply be mended by new rules or hopeful promises. As I drove away from the courthouse, the landscape around me seemed to shift, as if nature itself acknowledged that something significant had changed. The open road ahead felt symbolic, a route that promised new beginnings, even if the journey was uncertain and the past lingered like a shadow. With each passing mile, I felt the burden of the legal fight lighten, replaced by a cautious optimism about the future. In the silence of the car, I reflected on the unexpected twists that had led me to this moment. The betrayal, the prolonged court battles, the futile attempts at reconciliation, all of it had carved a deeper understanding into my soul. I realized that sometimes the only way to preserve one's dignity and self-respect was to let go, even when the process was excruciatingly slow and the wounds painfully fresh. Now, as I continue down this solitary road, I hold on to the belief that every ending is, in its own way, a new beginning. The finality of the divorce has left me with scars, yes, but also with the promise of a life rebuilt on my own terms. A life where I can finally define love and trust without compromise. After the finality of the divorce, I realized I needed to reinvent myself completely. I'd always been drawn to change, to the possibility of forging a life that was truly my own. The idea of a fresh start took me miles away from the chaos that had defined my past, and before long, I found myself captivated by the allure of Mexico. I spent countless evenings researching the country's hidden treasures until one idea resonated with me. A vast expanse of land by a serene lake that promised solace and endless possibility. I made the decision without hesitation. I purchased 12 acres of land along the water's edge, a generous parcel that offered both seclusion and the promise of a new beginning. The lake's gentle lapping against the shore and the warmth of the Mexican sun provided an almost therapeutic backdrop as I set about rebuilding my life. I transformed the old, neglected farmhouse on the property into a small retreat where I could nurture my creativity and slowly mend the wounds of betrayal. Each day, I watched the sunrise over the lake, and with it came a renewed sense of hope, a silent promise that life could be reimagined, even after heartbreak. As I began to truly embrace my new life, I received news that spurred me to believe even more in the path I had chosen. Lauren, my eldest daughter, had decided to take a bold step of her own. Inspired by her desire to chart her own destiny, she relocated to Mexico and invested in a travel business for $1.2 million. It wasn't just a business venture. It was a declaration of independence, a signal that she was ready to explore the world on her own terms. I remember the phone call vividly. Her voice brimmed with excitement as she described her plans, the thrill of adventure mingling with a newfound confidence. It felt as though, in her pursuit of wanderlust, she was not only exploring distant lands, but also rediscovering herself in the process. The transformation within our family was just beginning. Not long after Lauren's bold move, Vivian reached out, her tone hesitant yet determined. I soon learned that she too was ready to leave the shadows of our past behind. Vivian had purchased a travel agency for $850,000, a move that symbolized her long-overdue desire to embrace change. Although the decision came later than Lauren's, Vivian's choice was equally transformative. For years, she had hidden behind uncertainty, but now she was stepping out into a world where the only limits were those we imposed on ourselves. The arrival of both my daughters in Mexico marked a turning point that went far beyond mere geographical relocation. It felt as though fate had orchestrated our reunion on this sun-drenched land, creating a tapestry of new beginnings woven together by shared dreams and ambitions. We spent long evenings sitting by the lake, the water shimmering under the twilight sky, talking about our plans, our hopes, and the future we were determined to build. Our conversations often wandered into territory that was both thrilling and daunting. The idea that each of us was now responsible for creating our own destiny. In those moments of shared vulnerability, the scars of our past seemed to soften. The bitterness that once defined my world was gradually replaced by an acceptance of change and the courage to pursue happiness on our own terms. Our lives had taken an unexpected turn, one that could have been filled with sorrow and regret, but instead brimmed with possibility. The vibrant culture of Mexico, with its rich traditions and warm-hearted people, provided the perfect backdrop for our reinvention. We immersed ourselves in local customs, learned to appreciate the simple pleasures of life, and allowed the gentle rhythms of the country to guide our healing. Every day was a step further away from the old life, a life marred by betrayal and loss, and a step closer to a future filled with promise. I spent mornings tending to the land, evenings immersed in thoughtful reflection by the lake, and nights dreaming about what might come next. Lauren poured her energy into expanding her travel business, fueled by the belief that adventure could heal even the deepest wounds. Vivian, too, found a sense of purpose in her new venture, her cautious optimism gradually giving way to bold aspirations. There were moments when the weight of the past threatened to pull us back, but each time, the supportive presence of my daughters and the tranquil embrace of our new home reminded me that we were capable of creating a better future. The twists and turns of our journey had led us to this unexpected haven in Mexico, where every challenge was met with resilience and every setback was an opportunity to learn. In the end, our collective decision to embrace change transformed our lives in ways none of us had ever imagined. We weren't just surviving, we were thriving. The vast 12-acre landscape by the lake was more than just land. It was a testament to our ability to rebuild, redefine, and reclaim our happiness. And as I stood on the porch of my renovated farmhouse, watching the sun set over the shimmering water, I felt an overwhelming gratitude for the second chance we had been given, a chance to live boldly, to love freely, and to explore the uncharted territories of our own hearts. Life has a way of surprising you when you least expect it. I had spent many months healing by the lake, finding solace in the slow rhythm of nature and the promise of new beginnings. Yet, just when I thought I had settled into a quiet routine, fate introduced me to Natalia, a woman whose presence would irrevocably alter the course of my life. I first met Natalia at a charity gala hosted by a local hospital. I wasn't exactly in the mood for formal events, but a friend insisted that a little socializing might help me feel more connected to the world outside my lakeside retreat. Stepping into the grand hall, I was immediately drawn to a radiant figure standing by a display of vibrant flowers. Natalia exuded a rare combination of beauty and intelligence, her eyes sparkling with both warmth and determination. As I approached, I couldn't help but notice the confident air that surrounded her. She was not just another face in the crowd, but the owner of a successful pharmaceutical company, a fact that had clearly earned her respect in the community. Our conversation flowed effortlessly, and I was struck by her passion for her work. Natalia spoke with fervor about her company's mission to develop groundbreaking treatments, yet she remained grounded and humble, never letting success cloud her compassion for others. As the evening unfolded, I found myself eagerly hanging onto every word, the warmth in her voice gradually melting the remnants of my guarded heart. It wasn't long before I learned that Natalia was also a devoted mother to a bright and spirited young girl named Mia. The first time I met Mia, I was captivated by her lively curiosity and infectious smile. Despite the brief encounter, I felt an immediate bond with her, a deep, instinctual connection that felt both surprising and completely natural. Mia's presence illuminated Natalia's life in a way that resonated with my own long-held desire for family, a desire that had once been overshadowed by pain and loss. Our budding relationship progressed in a way that felt both exhilarating and profoundly reassuring. We began spending more time together, our weekends filled with long walks along the beach and evenings under the starry sky. Natalia introduced me to a world where business acumen met heartfelt empathy, a delicate balance that enriched every conversation we shared. I, in turn, found myself opening up about the darker chapters of my past, the divorce and the journey that led me here. She listened intently, her understanding gaze and thoughtful words gradually helping me piece together the fragments of a life I thought was shattered forever. Yet, as the weeks turned into months, life threw its own set of unexpected twists. There were moments when the shadow of my past threatened to creep back, moments of doubt when I wondered if I was truly capable of embracing love again. But Natalia's steadfast support and her unwavering belief in second chances kept me grounded. Even on days when the scars of betrayal felt too raw, she reminded me that every ending was simply a precursor to a new beginning, a sentiment that resonated deeply with the man I was becoming. Our connection grew stronger with each passing day. I found myself cherishing the little moments, shared laughter over a homemade meal, quiet conversations about dreams and ambitions, and the gentle, reassuring squeeze of her hand during long drives along the coastal roads. With Mia in tow, our little adventures took on an almost cinematic quality, a series of snapshots that, together, told the story of a family being reborn from the ashes of old wounds. After 7 months of deepening intimacy and shared experiences, I knew in my heart that I was ready to take a leap of faith. One clear, breezy evening, as the sky blazed with the colors of a setting sun over the ocean, I took Natalia to the very spot where we had first truly connected, a secluded cove that had become our haven. With the waves whispering secrets in the background and Mia playing nearby, I got down on one knee. My voice trembled slightly as I asked the question that had been echoing in my heart since the moment we met. Natalia, will you marry me? In that moment, everything else faded into insignificance. I could see the surprise, the joy, and the quiet certainty in her eyes as she whispered a heartfelt yes. The days that followed were a whirlwind of planning and heartfelt celebrations. Our wedding was a vibrant blend of Mexican tradition and our own unique story, a celebration not just of our love, but of resilience, second chances, and the beauty of embracing life in all its unpredictable twists. Standing before our closest family and friends, with the turquoise lake as our witness, I vowed to cherish and support Natalia in every way possible. I promised to be a partner not just in joy, but in the inevitable storms that life might bring, and to always honor the family we were building together. Even now, as I reflect on the journey that led me to this new love, I marvel at the unexpected turns life takes. From the pain of betrayal to the quiet solitude of a lakeside retreat, and ultimately to the profound connection I share with Natalia and Mia, every step has shaped me into a man capable of love, resilience, and hope. In Natalia, I found not only a partner but a kindred spirit, someone who taught me that sometimes the most beautiful chapters of life begin after the most challenging ones have ended. The crisp winter air of early December carried an unexpected blend of anticipation and caution as the holidays approached. I had built a new life in Mexico, a life defined by healing, new love with Natalia and Mia, and a carefully reconstructed sense of purpose. Yet, just as I was beginning to embrace this fresh chapter, an unforeseen encounter with the past loomed on the horizon. I learned that Samantha, my ex-wife, had been making subtle changes in her life. It wasn't an overt transformation. Rather, it was a quiet evolution that only those closest to her could notice. While Vivian still maintained a close relationship with her mother, a bond that had somehow weathered the storms of our previous discord, Lauren, on the other hand, remained firmly against any form of reconciliation or closeness with Samantha. Lauren's refusal was absolute, a silent protest against the woman who had once upended our lives with choices that cut too deeply. I had long since decided that my path lay away from the wreckage of the past. The scars were still there, raw reminders of betrayal and loss. But the passage of time had a way of softening even the deepest wounds, and I found myself questioning whether some ghosts were meant to be confronted. It was Natalia's gentle insistence that I consider attending a family Christmas dinner, an invitation that she extended not only to me, but also to Samantha. Natalia believed that the holidays could be a time for healing, a chance to lay old grievances to rest, even if only for a night. Christmas arrived with its usual splendor, twinkling lights, warm conversations, and a quiet hope that forgiveness might be possible. The dinner was held in a cozy, candlelit dining room where the scent of pine and cinnamon wafted through the air. I arrived with a sense of guarded curiosity, unsure what to expect from an evening where the past was invited to the table. There, seated at a long, polished table adorned with seasonal decorations, was Samantha. She looked different, calmer, her eyes softer, as if the relentless pace of her previous life had finally given way to introspection. The conversation began hesitantly. Samantha spoke of changes, of moments of self-reflection that had reshaped her understanding of our shared history. I listened in silence as she recounted her journey of regret and renewal, a narrative filled with remorse for the choices that had once seemed so inevitable. At one point, her voice broke as she said, "Andrew, I am truly sorry for the pain I caused. I realize now that my decisions have consequences far beyond what I ever imagined, and I regret that I hurt you and our family." Her apology hung in the air, a fragile bridge spanning the gulf of our past. Natalia, ever the peacemaker, interjected with a gentle reminder that the evening was about more than just apologies. It was about acknowledging our shared humanity. For a moment, the room was silent except for the soft clink of glasses and the murmur of distant conversation. I felt a surge of emotions, anger, sorrow, and even a flicker of empathy. It wasn't that I had forgotten the betrayal. It was that I was slowly learning to accept that people can change, that life can offer second chances. I knew, however, that forgiveness did not equate to forgetting, nor did it mean that I was ready to resume any sort of friendship with Samantha. In the quiet aftermath of her apology, I found myself nodding, a small, tentative gesture of forgiveness. I told her softly, "I forgive you, Samantha, not for your sake, but for mine. I need to move on without the weight of resentment." My words, though measured, were laden with the truth of my heart. I had reached a place where I could let go of the anger, yet I wasn't prepared to reopen the doors to a past that had once been so deeply painful. Throughout the evening, I observed the subtle dynamics at play. Vivian's supportive glances at her mother contrasted sharply with Lauren's silent disapproval, a reminder that the family was still divided by unresolved wounds. Yet, as the night wore on and the conversation flowed, there was a tentative sense that perhaps this one evening could serve as a stepping stone toward eventual healing. If not reconciliation, then at least mutual respect. As Christmas drew to a close, I left the dinner with a bittersweet mix of emotions. The encounter had not erased the past, but it had allowed me to acknowledge it without being imprisoned by it. I had forgiven Samantha, but I had also drawn clear boundaries. Forgiveness did not necessitate friendship, nor did it require me to invite her back into my new life. Walking away from the warmly lit dining room, I felt a cautious optimism mingled with the lingering echoes of history. I had taken another small step on my journey, one that allowed me to honor the lessons of the past while steadfastly protecting the future I was building. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for that evening, at least, I had managed to leave behind a shadow of the old life, embracing instead the promise of what might yet come. I've come to a point in my life where the echoes of old wounds have finally given way to a steady, comforting warmth, a feeling I once thought was lost forever. Sitting on the porch of our lakeside home in Mexico, I watched the sun dip below the horizon, its golden rays dancing across the water, and I can't help but smile. I'm surrounded by the people who have helped me rebuild everything I thought was broken. And every day, I wake up with a sense of gratitude that only true healing can bring. Natalia and I have created a sanctuary of our own, one where laughter fills the air and love is both tender and resilient. Her daughter Mia, with her endless curiosity and bright spirit, has seamlessly woven herself into the fabric of our daily life. From playful mornings spent chasing each other around the garden to quiet evenings where we share stories and dreams, it's become clear that our family is built on a foundation of genuine care and understanding. There's an unspoken promise between us all, a promise that no matter what storms come our way, we have each other to rely on. My daughters, too, have found their own place in this new chapter of life. Lauren, ever bold and unyielding in her pursuit of independence, has established herself in the thriving travel business she passionately runs. Her decision to move here wasn't merely about a change of scenery. It was a declaration of her own resilience and desire to redefine her future. Vivian, with her gentle optimism and careful determination, joined her sister with her own travel agency, and together they've brought a sense of unity and shared purpose that resonates deeply with me. Even as our paths diverge from what they once were, our hearts have found a way to beat in synchrony in this vibrant land of second chances. In a twist of fate that I can hardly believe now, Samantha reached out one last time to admit her mistakes. In a quiet, unguarded moment, she acknowledged the choices that had once upended our lives. Choices that had seemed so inevitable at the time, but now appeared in the light of hindsight as profound errors. She spoke with a tone of regret and introspection, and for a brief moment, I sensed the vulnerability behind the hardened facade of her past. But as much as her admission might have meant something in a different time, it arrived too late. The life I've built with Natalia, Mia, and my daughters is not a space where old regrets can find a foothold. I listened, nodded, and felt a pang of sorrow for what might have been, yet I knew that every step I'd taken had led me here, to a place of true contentment. This Christmas, our home was filled with the kind of warmth that comes from shared stories, laughter, and the simple joy of being together. The scent of freshly baked bread mingled with the spiced aroma of local treats, and the sound of cheerful conversation drifted through each room. We gathered around the table, a mosaic of faces both new and familiar, united by the unspoken understanding that we were all healing in our own way. The holiday spirit wasn't just about traditions or celebrations. It was about forgiveness, renewal, and the steadfast belief that happiness can be rediscovered even after the deepest of losses. As I sat there, reflecting on the winding journey that had brought me from betrayal and heartache to this moment of serene joy. I realized something profound. Happiness isn't a destination or a prize to be won. It's a state of being that comes from embracing life with all its imperfections and finding beauty in the scars that tell our stories. Every challenge I faced, every twist of fate that once seemed insurmountable, has contributed to the tapestry of my new life. And while the past will always be a part of who I am, it no longer holds me captive. I have learned to let go of bitterness and to cherish the moments that matter most. The shared smiles over a hearty meal, the quiet support of a loving partner, and the unbreakable bond with my daughters who continue to light my way. In the soft glow of the Christmas lights, surrounded by the people I love, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace. A peace that whispers of new beginnings and the promise of endless possibilities. Tonight, as the stars emerge one by one in the clear Mexican sky, I know I have finally found my happiness. It wasn't handed to me or forced upon me by fate. It was something I built, piece by piece, with courage, love, and the unwavering belief that every end is just the start of something beautiful. And as I close my eyes and let the gentle hum of contentment lull me to sleep, I am grateful for every twist and turn that led me to this serene, joyful chapter of my life.